Welcome to the Minnesota Rovers Tuesday evening presentation. Minnesota Rovers is an outdoors club based in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Our members organize trips that range from 1 hour to 2 weeks in Minnesota or further afield. Examples of our activities include hiking, biking, backpacking, skiing, snowshoeing, paddling, and rock climbing. We also organize conservation and trail clearing trips. Our members have experience and skills in many outdoor activities, so if you want to learn a new outdoor activity, we can probably help you. For more information, go to mnrovers.org. Now let's move on to this week's presentation.
Tonight, you're here to hear from Germana Paderlini on an eclectic Italian vacation. Our presenter, Germana, got the hiking bug from her summer vacations in the Alps, where the nuns made girls hike all day just to keep them quiet. Before coming to the US, she backpacked a section of the Corsica GR20, a few forgotten trails in Croatia, and watched for fires in Monte Conero Nature Park in Italy. In the US, studies and family kept her away from hiking, but she caught the hiking bug again and is always looking to be outdoors. She also leads hikes with the North Star chapter of the Sierra Club. Please welcome tonight's speaker, Germana Paderlini.
First of all, thank you, Rovers, and thank you, Stacy, for the opportunity to present some parts of Italy that maybe you are not very familiar with. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so this is Italy. So when we talk about the outdoors, yes, it's nature, but then it's also people. And sometimes there are a lot of people, like that is in Rome. It's very crowded. Sometimes there are no people, nobody's around, but still the landscape is shaped by humans. So peoples are always present. So keep this in mind for the type of opportunities or adventures you want to see when you go to Italy. Okay, so I was there this year from May 15 to June 4th. I haven't, typically I go to Italy every year, but because of COVID and other things, last time I was in Italy was 6 years ago, which is actually a long time for me. So my goal was not to plan, or at least have some kind of broad plans, but I do planning for work, so this one was not going to be a planning trip. I was planning to spend time with family and friends. I'm a first-generation American, and as you know, all first-generation Americans, they go back and visit their family, so that's what I did this time as well. And so in the middle, then I left some time for hiking, bird watching, and sightseeing, and also, of course, food. These are on the red area. There are the area that I went and visited those 3 weeks. In the north, there is Milan. Usually I fly to Milan. Then I stop in Antignano, and then we went down to Rome and Tuscany. So where is Antignano? It's a very small town located in Piedmont, and Piedmont is the most northwest region of Italy. So it's at the border with France and Switzerland, where all the mountains ranges are beautiful mountains. And on the south side, that's where you go for Cinque Terre, that I think some people are familiar with. So in between, there are these hills, and they have kind of ideal weather for growing grapes. And so that's where all the famous red wines come from. So Antignano is somewhere there in the Monferrato and Roero area. You need a car to travel there because there's not much train service. There are lots of castles. Basically there are hills, and on top of the hills there is always a castle or a church. Airbnb is available there. Easy to find a place. As you look for hiking information, those are very sporadic. There is not a lot of information that you can gather ahead of time. Sometimes we just bump into it. And there at the end, I have a website where you can find more information from very specialized mountain climbing all the way to just being a tourist. And so that's piemonteoutdoor.it. Okay, so this is Antignano. It's a small village on top of the hills. Italy has a lot of villages that have been kind of semi-abandoned because people moved out. Used to be agricultural areas, but now, people moved to the cities and so forth. But what happened is some of the old farmhouses now, they are restored, remodeled, and so forth. And so they are converted into Airbnb. And some of them are, beautiful locations. And so this was the view from that place. So this was at dawn. And on the right side, that's another view. As you see, you have a hill, and top of the hill, there is a church. Okay, so where to find hiking information? And so many times you just you just arrive at the village, the little town, and then you find this signage like this one. They're usually sponsored by the region, by the Piemonte region, and so forth. And those are, there is a map, but then there is also they tell you why you should do that hike. And the explanation is in both Italian and English. And it's many times very poetic. They add, some kind of inspiring phrases just to invite you to hike in that area. Okay, so this one was the Sentiero of the Orchidee, which is orchid trail. Again, it's those are easy trails in the countryside, and people those are working areas, so farm areas. So on the left side, for example, there is there are hazelnuts, so there are wheat and of course grapes. This one, they used to be a long time ago, like mom and pop or small farms. Now, even if you find like a wheat field, for example, that one belongs to Barilla, which is I don't know, you probably bought the pasta at the grocery store. Okay, so that, and that's just, it's kind of a pattern. You stop in another town, here are the maps, here are the point of interest. Unfortunately, you cannot kind of organize that ahead because you never know where you're going to end up. But that's okay. That was part of my non-planning. So, but the good things are they're both always in Italian and English. Okay, so my other goal was to look around and do a little bit of bird watching. I've been doing it here, like in the Minnesota River Valley. Those are large parks. There is nothing like that in Italy. All the areas are very small. For example, that one is just outside my hometown, is like 25 acres. So kind of tells you, that humans, they have not left a lot of intact regions where you can find, nature's or birds at their natural state. But the amazing thing is even the small areas, they're so much richer than just outside the area. So that's where all the birds congregate. So if you want to find more information, there is the World Wildlife Fund. The Italian section, they're very active, and usually aristocrats in the past, they donate areas to the government or to the WWF, and they became they became natural areas, and some of them are very beautiful. The LIPO is another one. This Italian League for the Protection of the Birds that is just dedicated for birds. The WWF is a protection of all the animals. And then, of course, there is the eBird that you can actually switch to Italians, because sometimes, I didn't know which one was which. So as far as the birds are concerned, the spring migration is similar to this one, is from mid-March to mid-May. The birds, we are on the green route there on the map on the right, meaning that some of the birds, they come all the way from the tip of Africa, southern tip of Africa, and they go all the way up to Finland sometimes. So when I was there, we had a lot of blackcaps, nightingale, pheasants, herons and egrets, of course, pigeons, or kind of pigeons. So, it's not like in the United States, you have to do a little bit more work to do bird watching, just because the area are small and they're not easy to find. Okay, so some birds are rare and some other ones are invasive. And this is a sacred ibis. Sacred ibis is it was extinct in Egypt, but now since 1989 in Italy there were only a few dozen. Now there are more than 11,000. So. And that's another sign of climate change. These birds, they used to migrate, from North Africa to Italy and back. Now they are staying. And that's the kind of the environment that they like. Where I'm from, they cultivate rice, the famous arboreal rice. So there are lots of, wet area and fields. So it's kind of like ideal setting for the sacred ibis. Farmers don't like them because they're big and they trample over the rice. So just this one gives you an idea of, what's the status of birds in Italy. Okay, so we are done with Antignano in the north. My next stop was Tuscany. Where I was able to meet with my daughter and her friends. So the easiest way to travel in Italy is with high-speed trains. There are two companies. One is Frecciarossa, means the red arrow, that it's state-owned. And the other train is the Italo, it's privately owned. It's very fast. It only takes for 3 to 3.5 hours to travel by train, and there's no stops, and it's fairly cheap. It's you can spend like between $40 to $80 round trip, even in first class. So they always have some kind of discounts. So if you buy the ticket ahead of time, there are lots of good tickets. Okay, so the train stops in Roma Termini, which is in the center of Rome. So you don't have to go anywhere. You're there. It's not. We were saying about everything that has to do with the outdoors. The rovers are into it. So in Rome, there is a lot of things you can do outdoors. You can walk everywhere. There is a lot of walking. It's a very, very walkable city. since I was not planning, I did not buy tickets to anything that requires standing in line. So this one was May, and the lines were already very long. There's still plenty to do, even if you don't buy a ticket, let's say for the Sistine Chapel or the inside the Colosseum, you can still take a peek outside those places. My suggestion, don't take a taxi. Taxis are kind of a little bit of a monopoly. So as far as you're kind of trapped in whatever they want to charge you, but you can always walk or take the subway. And the same with things with bottled water. Rome actually has plenty of very good water. Some of them comes by aqueduct built by the Romans 2,000 years ago. They're still working. So what did I remember of Rome? Of course, I did all the tourist sites. And Rome is the city of power of the church, power of the Roman Empire. So everything is big. Statues are big marble. The things that impressed me most is Michelangelo Pietà. The amazing thing is he sculpted the Pietà when he was only 24 years old, which is kind of amazing. And the other thing, yes, people go to Rome for food. There are like restaurants everywhere, sometimes too many restaurants. One thing I remember is maritozzo, which is like a brioche with whipped cream. Doesn't sound much, but it's really good. And the name maritozzo means little husband. There's some kind of little story there. But so much about Rome. Okay, then from Rome, we move to Maremma. Okay, so where is Maremma? So on the right, there is the map of Tuscany, and you can recognize Firenze, Florence, Arezzo, Siena. So although those are the most tourist places that people are familiar with. Maremma is the southern area of Tuscany at the border with Lazio. Lazio is the region, Rome is in Lazio. So if you want to get to the coast, to the west coast in Italy from Rome, then the best way to do it is to take a train to the Fiumicino airport and then rent a car. And the reason you want to rent a car is because not many places can be reached by train. And even if there is a train station, sometimes there is no taxi, so Uber does not exist in Italy. So, and in these little towns, taxi drivers is basically someone who knows someone who works also it gives rides once in a while. So we rented the car at the airport, and then we drove 1.5 hours to Ansedonia. Ansedonia is in that peninsula up there, which is next to the Argentario, which is kind of a wild forest area, relatively speaking, and on the coast. Okay, so the way we decide to do it is by renting a villa, and in this case, not Airbnb, but apparently my daughter wants to have more fancy places, but also a place that was able to accommodate more people. And so we were actually 10 people, 2 toddlers and 1 baby. So this was a multi-generational trip. So by sharing the cost, then it can end up to be $700 per person per week, breakfast included, which is better than, I guess, a hotel or even Airbnb. It came with 2 caretakers. They take perfect care of that villa. It turned out to be designed by a famous Italian architect, Castaldi, in the 70s. So this one was a very hip area in the 70s for both politicians and TV personalities. And even now, it's kind of considered a fancy neighborhood. Okay, so here, not planning, but you bump into things and start appreciating things. So from that house, then you could hike it to the top of the hill, and we found some local archaeology. Is actually the top of the hill. It was a Roman settlement called the city of Cosa. And the interesting things, and they also have a small museum that wasn't crowded. So if you are like in archaeology, interested in archaeology or in history, you can just spend time in the museum all the time you want, and without worrying about the crowds. So if you want to find out more, sometimes it's better to go to the smaller places so you can learn more. One thing that I was impressed by is that how were they able to carry these huge stones to make the wall on top of the hill. And of course, there was the view there is from the temple. I can't remember if it was Athena or Venus, one of the two. But there is always a temple on top of those hills. And that is the Laguna area that you can see there. And again, on the right side, there is a signage for another path, another trail system, which I couldn't find anywhere else. So it's one of those things that you bump into it and then you probably need to research and do some more work about it. But this one was a nice hike on top of the hill there. Okay, so again, we spent some time both on the seaside and the mountainside. So this is a view from the seaside. And there is a small strip there. They call it pineta, which they call it a pine forest. It's actually a wood. It's it's a question of scale. It's not really a wild forest. It's a last remaining, trees of this pine forest. The water is kind of shallow in there. This area used to be a marsh area. Malaria was, you don't think of Italy as the area with malaria, but actually was quite common, 100 years ago or even earlier. One of the things Mussolini tried to do was to dry out all the swamps. It didn't succeed very much, but just as a background, lots of the coastal area in Italy, there used to be marshes. And that was a great thing for birds, but not so much now. So again, if you go in there, then there are some, information about which bird you can encounter. On eBird, I found out that, the flamingos were supposed to be there, but of course I didn't see any, but that doesn't mean they're not there. This is in the middle of the forest. There was this statue, and I find out that that's where Caravaggio died. So Caravaggio was from Milano and then Rome, and then the very violent lifestyle. So anyway, he had fever, he was wounded, and he died there on this beautiful coast. And a few years ago, they just built a statue. Okay, so again, on the seaside, we went out on the Isola del Giglio. So, see. So if you see on the map, you have this called Archipelago Toscano. So it's a series of islands. The most famous is the Isola d'Elba, where they took Napoleon the first time, and then he escaped from it. But this is Isola di Giglio. You can go there by boat. They offer free tours. One thing, if someone is interested, you can just rent a boat with or without a captain. It takes about 3.5 hours to go around it. We didn't do that. We just hike on top of the hill. It was a couple of hours, so you're pretty steep, you go up. It used to be a trail used by donkeys and mules. Now it's kind of disrepair. This one also was in old trail maps. So once in a while, by using old trails, you can find something in Italy. And from there, you know, there's a beautiful view and so forth. So this is kind of a pattern. If you are in Italy, one way is to always hike up to a castle, to a church. Of course, there was a road there, but we didn't take the road. Okay, so after the seaside, we start to explore the mountainside. And so those are three areas where we went. Actually, we have Lago di Bolsena, Viterbo, Capalbio, and Saturnia. This area, it used to be a volcanic area. So, and so there are lots of hot springs. And one famous hot spring is Saturnia. And basically it's like, there's a creek with very hot water that goes by, and some, I don't know if it's sulfur or something, but it smells. And then they build these pools on the back of the mill. And then people can go there for free. And it's incredibly popular, especially from people from Eastern Europe and Germany. That busload of people go into the bath of Saturnia because it's supposed to be good for your health. And actually it's quite pleasant, you know, the temperature, it's, you know, quite warm, but you can sit there and enjoy it. Another volcanic area, it's Lago di Bolsena. So Bolsena, there was a volcano and then now it's a lake. Bolsena is important because it's, I will explain later, is part of the Via Francigena, which is a route that goes all the way from the UK down to Rome. And this was part of a pilgrimage because of the first saint, Santa Cristina, was there. So you had pilgrims going to see the saint, but also became kind of a center of commerce during the Middle Ages. So again, hiking to the castles and so forth. And this, you can see this is Santa Cristina, there are some catacombs. So if you go there, you know, the history spans from the Romans 2,000 years ago and then all the way to the Baroque area. So in the Middle Ages too. Viterbo is also on the path. Viterbo was actually the site, the house of some of the popes. 8 of the popes were here. Not all the popes went to Rome. Some of the popes at that time during the Middle Ages, families, they were fighting with each other for whom was going to be pope. So there are a few towns in the area just north of Rome where some of the popes, you know, lived or managed, and this is one of them. So here is the Via Francigena. Francigena means across France. So it's it starts from Canterbury Cathedral in the UK and ends in Rome. And what happened, the Crusaders, they could take the trail and then go on the East Coast to Campania, take the boat there to Jerusalem. So this was one of the routes. Over the years, they kind of, I think it was a cardinal, I don't remember, but he described stop by stop how to go through these trails. Is the 1,700 kilometers. There are 80 stops and 20 kilometers each. And so Bolsena and Viterbo are 2 of the stops. And right now, I wasn't expecting that, but once in a while you see signs or Via Francigena, and then you can stay here. Sometimes you can stay in a monastery or a church own, bread and breakfast or whatever available there. I discovered at that time, this summer. And then again, another one, Capalbio, mountainside, castles, hiking, some good food. This is more from the mountainside. You get a lot of truffles, mushrooms, boars, and all kind of very earthy food, which sometimes you don't kind of think about as Italian food. There's no tomatoes here, for example. And almost no garlic either. So, okay, so this is the end. So if you plan to go to Italy, you cannot separate nature, people, history, sometimes family and friends. It's the whole thing. So you have to be able to be open to explore different side of Italy. What I learned is also that maybe I should plan next time, and maybe this time it was more like a discovery trip. So I would like to go more in Piemonte and the Monferrato area and do more of the hiking there. Actually, my parents are from the Monferrato, so I kind of, that area is very dear to me. Spring migration, there are some other areas of Italy that have more birds, like in the Po River is the main river, and it comes out on the east side of Italy, just south of Venice, and that's where most of the birds are there, and probably maybe I'll be able to see flamingos. And then the other things is, would be nice if I could do some of the section of the Via Francigena, and I know it's not as organized as the Camino de Santiago, but I think that's a possibility. So that's my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you. You have a question, Clinton?
Yeah, I saw a movie about a year ago. I think it's Andrea Bocelli, the famous singer.
Andrea Bocelli, yeah.
Yeah, he followed a trail that I think it ended up in Rome, but it was a very interesting movie. It was, but they used a horse.
Oh, I see.
Do the trail, yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with that or what trail.
No, I believe the one, the Francigena is for pilgrim on foot, but so I don't know if they're, yeah. Okay, yes. Oh, yeah, so we have a question is when is the best time to go to Italy? We went there in May and it was already pretty hot. So I think the weather is changing. It used to be, July and August, but now it's, I would say probably April, May, it's a good time. Also, you don't get as many tourists or many, the crowds are thinner, or you can wait until like September, October. Next year is a Jubilee year, in Rome. So my recommendation is to skip Rome next year. Yes.
Thank you so much, Germana, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Question was, what's the cost for the trip?
The total cost? Well,
Approximate?
Okay, so the air ticket from here to Milan is about $1,400. Then we had $700 in Tuscany, maybe another $400 in Monferrato. So maybe close to 3,000 between everything for 3 weeks.
Thanks for watching this Minnesota Rovers presentation. If you want to see more, please click on the link to our channel or the subscribe button below. Thank you.